Through the darkness of future past the magician longs to see. One chance out between two worlds. Fire, pod with me. Hello everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Fire Pod with Me, the Twin Peaks podcast by Astro Point. My name's Vinny. With me as always is my friend Steven. Say hi, Steven.
Hey, hey.
Today we're going to be talking about part 17 of the Return to Twin Peaks. If you're not caught up, I suggest you stop listening. If you are caught up, keep listening. We're going to try and make as much sense of this two-part series finale as we can. We're going to split this finale podcast into two parts, though. We'll be discussing part 17 here, and then we'll do part 18 in the next one. Yeah, I guess we'll just get started here with our kind of recap. Well, you know what? First of all, Steven, what did you think of part 17?
Well, we've talked about this already, but 17 is very fulfilling. Like 17, I really liked it. There's a lot of closure that can be found in it, and a lot of I feel like even like right off the bat, some of the questions that we've had are kind of answered. And so, yeah, I really love 17. I feel like a lot of the issues that people have are coming from 18, but that's fine. We can get into that in the next episode. But, yeah, I mean, I liked it. What about you?
Same thing. It's very, very much so more fulfilling than 18 is. I guess once we get into it, there's some things that bothered me about it. Nothing's gonna be 100% perfect, and I don't know how I would end Twin Peaks. I don't know if they wanted to end Twin Peaks per se.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Let's just go ahead and talk about it. So we start with our FBI crew. Presumably still in North Dakota or South Dakota, Buckhorn, South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we learned that Gordon is not he hasn't gotten soft where it counts. If you catch my drift.
Ayo.
Gordon Cole, he's still got a good dick, guys.
Can you imagine a David Lynch Viagra commercial?
Not where it counts, son.
We definitely need to get a meme reaction of David Lynch saying that the not where it counts, and then what the hell?
10 out of 10.
Can't believe it.
But he goes to further explain that at some point, presumably before Coop entered the Black Lodge, he had a conversation with both Cooper and Major Garland Briggs about an entity known as Jowday, which in the modern day has translated to Judy. So, Stephen, what are your thoughts on Jowday and how it kind of threw everyone's guess about Judy out the window?
Yeah, I mean it completely like debunks kind of what we were saying. But it makes sense that, like, I don't know. I feel like how do I explain it? Like, there's this underlying like question of like why everyone's been disappearing, and so for this to kind of give it this sense of purpose of why everyone was disappearing, I guess was nice. But I guess it wasn't something that I was looking for, but it was nice to have it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, because Coop told Gordon, if I disappear like everyone else, do everything you can to find me. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that goes to show, because it was Garland that like made the discovery, right, of Jowday.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or was it Philip? Because he kind of said that Philip Jeffries had made his own discoveries, and that's why he he ended up the way he did.
Well, yeah, and it was interesting that Gordon says Jeffries doesn't exist in the normal sense.
Yeah. So how do you how would he know that? That's interesting to me too.
Yeah. So do you think Gordon Cole has had conversations with Tea Kettle Philip Jeffries?
Yeah, maybe, but like the only way to really get to him is like going through like the portal, through the staircase, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what we've seen anyway. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, because I mean, not to jump too far ahead in the episode, but when they do encounter, we see Philip Jeffries again. What does he say? He's like something about like the inauthentic version of himself.
Yeah. He says when say hello to Gordon, he'll remember the unofficial version.
The unofficial version. So yeah, so I guess that kind of answers the question. Is yeah, they've had some sort of interaction. Who knows when? But within the last 25 years, yeah, Gordon must have gone there and interacted with him. But that's also interesting too, because in the scene he mentions that he kept all of this from Albert because he didn't want Albert to get involved and disappear as well. So
Right.
so he was kind of working rogue and trying to figure some of this stuff out himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, like I guess just that whole scene was just like, oh man, like this answers a lot of questions again that like I wasn't expecting to get in such a just like a clear-cut way, that like Judy is the reason why all these people are disappearing. But again, it was nice to it was some sense of closure there, I guess.
Definitely. And yeah, and that's kind of not the first time that that's happened in the run of The Return. A few episodes ago, we had the Blue Rose, like just completely explained to us right from the get go by our by our FBI boys.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, because I guess this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, I think, last episode, right, with Tulpa Diane, where we were talking about just like Gordon's intuition about like things that are going on, because he kind of gets the sense that like the way that the scene transitions is he's like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but something with Coop, and he's like, it seems like his plan, or this might not be going to Coop's plan or something like that. And then he gets the call from the FBI about they found Coop, and he flew the Coop. He had just left the hospital. But again, like,
well, I love that scene because Bushnell Mullins takes Randall's phone. And like reads him the message, and then Randall tries to get his phone back later, and Bushnell is like keeping the phone.
Yeah.
he kind of backs up. He's like, "It was my phone."
Yeah. But yeah, like I guess Gordon must get a sense, because the reason why he's explaining all that to Albert is he just kind of feels like it's back into play, because then they start talking about basically Dougie. Or Coop leaves the message with Bud, right? And Bushnell tells him that Coop is headed for Sheriff Truman's. But yeah, then they kind of like at the FBI, or with Gordon and Tammy and Albert, they look up everything that's happened with Dougie, and it's they declare it a Blue Rose case indeed. So yeah, I don't know. I guess my point is, like, it's just weird that Gordon gets a sense that, I don't know, it's happening again, I guess, that something with Coop is going on, and this is maybe part of Coop's plan, or I don't know.
Right. We finally get that famous tagline of this season. It's happening again. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so this was weird to me. Oh yeah, I guess we figured out what's going on with Chad later, but initially we go back to the jail in Twin Peaks where Naito and Freddie and James and Chad and the local drunk are all locked up. But I
Hmm.
thought, like, for whatever reason, because you see Chad, like, waiting for the drunk to fall asleep, and he's like planning to do something. For whatever reason, I thought he was gonna like hit him with something, like he had like a slingshot. For whatever reason, that was like my gut instinct was like, yeah, he's gonna like throw something at him.
No, I totally thought he was gonna escape like as soon as we saw him kind of creeping. Like I was like,
Hmm.
oh, he's got a key hidden somewhere, and sure enough,
Yeah.
we see that he does. But yeah, I mean this kind of might be hard to kind of go over these next few scenes because they all kind of overlap and play
Right.
continuously together, and we cut to character to character. Um,
Yeah, pretty rapidly going back and forth between like, yeah, Gordon and them, and then Twin Peaks and Evil Coop, and then Ben Horn. Like, it jumps around quite a bit here in this little pocket.
right.
So yeah, we see Evil Coop driving at night. Just kind of briefly. Then we see.
Sorry,
Uh-oh.
ladies and gentlemen. There's another fish in my percolator. Uh, it's my it's my coffee pot telling me that my coffee is no longer going to stay warm, but that's okay because I drank it all. Uh, sorry about that.
All right, so we see, yeah, Ben Horn gets a call, and he's been informed that Jerry is in Wyoming, and so that's where the whole, um,
Which is fucking incredible that he just ran all the way there.
right, like, I was just thinking about that, like how the hell can they even explain that? But I have no idea. Um, because if I'm not mistaken, because I know we've talked about this before, like even though Twin Peaks, like it's filmed in like North Bend on like the west side of Washington, um, in theory, or like I guess in the world of Twin Peaks, isn't it by Spokane? Isn't that where they say it is?
Yeah, it's up north. But it's on it would be like north of Spokane a little
Okay.
bit. It's essentially where a town called Danville is on a
Mm,
map.
got it. So yeah, I mean, either way, to get to Wyoming, I don't really know how they explain that, but that cracked me up. Yeah, and he says he'll make arrangements to go get him. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
pick him up. Um, okay, so yeah, this is where shit starts to get interesting, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do we see next? We see Evil Coop driving at night, correct?
Uh, we see him creeping around in the woods.
Oh, right. He arrives at the woods, and yeah, do you want to explain kind of what happens?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. He comes upon well, it didn't look to me like he was with the sycamore trees, but it was like that weird stump that's got like the oil, the shit that smells like oil. And
Yeah. So is that technically Jack Rabbit's palace? Is that the same spot like where Nido was at?
I'm not sure
Like,
because I mean we didn't see the landmark of Jack Rabbit's palace.
right. We just saw, yeah, that spot in the earth. Yeah.
Hmm. So I don't know. Maybe I didn't see the sycamore trees and they were right in front of me. But anyway, he looks up and one of those portals begins appearing, and he kind of fades away, and then we're in what I'm assuming is the White Lodge, which is that room that we saw from part 8, where the firemen had it's that big almost like 50s ballroom. How would you describe that room?
Yeah, I would say it's like a ballroom theater type setup. Yeah, it is kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, it's like a 1920s kind of looking
Yeah.
theater almost.
Yeah, like, and it's crazy, like everything that's going on in there. Like like Evil Coop arrives and his face is in like a giant cage, right?
Yeah,
That's just kind of
and
like floating
which
there.
is which is adjacent to Major Briggs's floating head.
Yeah. And then the fireman, the giant, if we were calling him that, the fireman, he's floating again like how he did when he created the Laura orb, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really see he's not doing anything significant besides floating there, right? He's not creating anything that we can tell.
No, he motions his hand and seems to move the cage that contains evil Coop.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk theory here for a second.
Sure.
Why do you think that evil Coop needed to go to the White... Because, so essentially what happens is he's there and then he gets transported to the sheriff's station, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did he need to go to the White Lodge to then get to the sheriff's station?
That's a good question. So, can we assume that maybe what he was doing in the woods was following the other coordinates?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, maybe he was attempting to get into the White Lodge, and what happened was the fireman was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
And then he ends up in front of the sheriff's station. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's like, "What is this?" when he's like put in front of the sheriff's station.
Oh yeah, I thought he was about to say, "What is this? Kindergarten?"
Yeah.
Like, if that was just his punchline, that would have been so good.
he has trouble differentiating things from nursery school.
Yeah. That's a good point though. It reminds me just of the conversation we had last about, or I don't even know if we had this on the podcast. We might have just had this just by ourselves, but about when the giant says in episode 1 where he says, "It is in our house now."
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people thought, well, some like evil Coop or someone is in the White Lodge. I don't know if chronologically, I probably disagree with the theory that Coop is talking to he can't be, obviously, if the fireman's in that scene. But anyway, if it's around that general time frame, I don't think when people were interpreting "it is in our house now" as like evil Coop or someone evil being in the White Lodge, but I never really took it as that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, it just reminded me that we were having that conversation because I was like, "There's no way that evil Coop ends up in the White Lodge," and sure enough,
he did.
Briefly, very briefly.
But it seemed like the firemen and maybe Carlin Briggs, whoever else is in the White Lodge, had a control over the situation, obviously, because they got him the fuck out of there.
That's true. Do you think so? So Garland died and ended up. I mean, there's a lot of questions about Garland that I still have. But do you think how kind of Philip Jeffries is bound to the teapot that Major Briggs is just kind of bound to be, his head at least is bound to being in the White Lodge?
Yeah, perhaps. In the original series, there's that scene where he disappears for a while.
Right.
And then he comes back in like the aviator uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was assumed that he went to the White Lodge then as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows, maybe his soul has just been bound to the White Lodge, and that's where he's meant to end up.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff, and again, we're not going to jump too far ahead with episode 18, but just like a lot of the ideas about some of that stuff just kind of keeps expanding with like people jumping from different places and stuff, and just so many unanswered questions. Anyway, getting back on track here. We see Evil Coop arrive at the sheriff's station, and Andy is out in his car, or by his car. He's excited to see Cooper.
Which I thought that was pretty funny because like he obviously the fireman showed him like, hey, there's two Coopers, and he showed him like what they looked like. And
Yeah.
he sees Evil Coop, and he's like, Agent Cooper! And brings him in.
Yeah, no, that is funny. It did, like, I guess maybe it took Andy. Because, yeah, no, that's true. Because when he, like, grabs Naito or, like, is taking her back to the jail or the sheriff's station, he's very aware, and he seems, like, knowledgeable of what's going on. Like, he took the fireman's information and, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, this is a top priority. We need to get her back. So, yeah, no, that is pretty funny that he was just like, oh, come on in. So, yeah, he leads him in, and then he's greeted by Lucy as well, right?
Yeah.
And
Cut between this, we have Freddie and James. They're trying to figure out what Naito is saying, or like what's going on with her.
right.
And,
yeah, because she's freaking out.
Yeah, and around that same time, the drunk, bloody dude passes out, and so like Chad kind of takes his opportunity and starts trying to escape.
Right.
And then then we cut back to Andy introducing Cooper to Lucy. And I love that, like, Evil Coop is not really attempting to be like, he's not being very Cooper-like.
Yeah, he doesn't do a good. He's not. Yeah, it's like it's not convincing, and he's not even making an effort. Like, he just showed up greasy. Like, he could have very well. Like, he could have took a lesson out of Wyndham Earle's book and, like, put on a disguise at least.
Yeah.
Cut his hair, but he's just like, nah.
Yeah, he's like, fuck it. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
So Cooper kind of heads to Sheriff Truman's office. Bad Coop, I should say. And at this point, we see Andy, like, with a big old smile on his face, and he kind of, like, thinks. And then he's reminded of what he saw in the White Lodge. And
yeah. I was kind of like working through that at the same time, just like 30 seconds before, because once I saw Lucy, I was like, oh, that's what she was wearing in his vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, like once Evil Coop goes into Truman's office, yeah, that's when he like remembers, and then we see the flashback, or the vision, I should say. So he like Andy then kind of runs away, right? Like,
not quite. So, like, we see Chad actually escape, and he's, like, snooping around, like,
That's
finding
right.
a gun at this point.
Yeah.
And then we've got Sheriff Truman trying to talk to Coop, and he's like, Special Agent Dale Cooper. And he's like, in the flesh. Like, he's like, you want some coffee? And Scale Coop's like, no. Which is just blatantly, obviously not Coop.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to pretend to be Dale Cooper, like, turning down coffee is the last thing you want to do.
You had one job.
Yeah. And so, at that point, we cut back to Andy, and then he looks at Lucy, and he says, very important, and sprints down the hall like he did in his vision.
Right.
And at this time, we see the drunk guy just ripping his flesh off, which was interesting.
Yeah.
What
I didn't.
So, what do you think? What do you think is the point of this guy?
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Like, I really, I don't know. I think in a way he served a purpose to kind of agitate Chad and kind of give Chad, because like Chad was very annoyed. I mean, with obviously Naito and him, he couldn't really sleep, and so maybe it gave him more of an initiative to escape. Versus, yeah, because he was like, yeah, again, he was just very agitated, and. But I don't know. In the grand scheme of it, like, I'm trying to think all that guy did, like, Can you think of anything else besides just being annoying?
No, I mean, other than my theory of him being Billy, which honestly
Right.
serves nothing really. When I guess we'll get to that, but
Yeah.
you know, I have no idea what that man's purpose was, because I mean, pretty much after the scene, we don't see him again. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, that's true.
because Andy shows up down in the holding cell area, and Chad meets him down there with a gun.
Yeah.
And I had seen a lot of people kind of predicting that Chad was going to kill Andy, and so when Andy got down there and Chad greeted him with the gun, I was like, oh no. I was like, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, because Chad worked pretty quickly. Like, he had the key in his shoe, and then he snuck out, and then he snuck into his locker and grabbed his gun. And then, yeah, like right in that time period, Andy comes. And, yeah, like Chad's like, I'm going to put one between, I think he was going to say, like, your eyes, or
Yeah.
had his gun drawn. Yeah, because he's like, oh, it's the good cop Andy. Like,
Yeah. Being classic Chad.
yeah, fucking dickhead. And then our boy Freddy, the glove, timed it perfectly. And as Chad is walking towards Andy, just fucking, he like, I can break these cuffs. Just breaks out of the cell.
Yeah.
And
one punch.
one punch, man. Yeah. And the door kind of goes like, the cell door goes like flying open and like knocks Chad out. I think.
Yep.
Do you think it killed Chad, or do you think it just knocked him out?
That's a great question. I just figured it knocked him unconscious, but it killing him is way funnier.
Agreed. Like, we don't really even get the satisfaction of seeing him dying. It's just like,
yeah. See ya. Well, because you know what? Doesn't Andy handcuff him? So he's probably alive.
oh, that's true. That's true. I guess I'm just so used to the dramatic punches in this season, from Scale Coop to...
We got a lot of people getting punched to death. So around this time, Lucy gets a call from the real Coop, and she forwards it on to Sheriff Truman, and I love this because like Sheriff Truman answers the phone, and Cooper's like, Harry, it's Coop, and he's like, "This is Harry's brother, Frank." Like, I love the non-urgency with some of the cast. I don't know, it's just kind of funny. And as Sheriff Truman's putting it together that he's talking to the real Cooper on the phone, they both draw their guns at the same time, him and Scale, and we see Sheriff Truman's hat kind of lift off his head briefly, and gunshots happen, and we cut to Scale Coop, and he slinks over, and our girl Lucy, she did it. She did what Ray couldn't.
She came through. That's right.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, no, yeah, that scene was like, I don't know, it was very classic. Like, it was definitely like a nod to like, Western cowboy, drawing their guns, but yeah, like, and especially like the bullet going through the cowboy hat is very classic.
Yeah.
But I really, that scene was really cool because like you could tell, like, even before Truman got the call from like the real Coop, you could tell he was skeptical, like, because he knew about two Coops, right? Like, so I'm sure he was already putting the pieces together there. But yeah, then once it happened so quick, and then you see that Lucy was the one behind the gun that shot him, like, and that also goes back to I don't even remember now. I feel bad. We were talking about this earlier though, just about how Lucy, like, her character, and like she can on the surface she can be kind of doubted and like just be taken as kind of ditzy and not really in the now and focused on, like, not aware of like everything that's going on around her,
Right.
But like, I don't know, you always see how important she is as a character. I guess there's been multiple instances in the series of like what she's capable of. So I thought that was really cool. That it was,
Yeah.
it
And
was her
and
that ended up shooting him.
after she shoots him, she says, "I figured out how cell phones work," or something along those lines.
Right.
Like I figured out the purpose of cell phones might be what she said. Anyway,
Right.
yeah, Coop on the phone says, "Stay away from that body. Like, do not touch that body," because just as Coop and the Mitchum brothers, I love that the Mitchum brothers come with them.
Yeah.
Just as they arrive, the woodsmen are doing their their little spooky tribal dance to the Goosebumps theme, trying to get that borb out. You know what I mean? The Bob orb.
And that was like that was a twist for me, because when we in episode 8, when we see Scale Coop get shot, we, like, you and I were under the impression that they took the Bob orb out and that the Bob orb wasn't even in Scale Coop anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, I guess it just kind of like I don't know. It just made me look at them differently, I guess. Like, how did you take it? Like, do you think it's like a ritual to like try and revive Scale Coop with the Bob orb, or are they trying to take the Bob orb for themselves? Like, how do you think that works? What do you think that dynamic is?
We've seen Bob heal wounds. Like in Fire Walk with Me, Leland is in the Black Lodge and he's covered in blood, and Bob kind of like sticks his arm up to him and like absorbs what I would assume would be Garmin Bozia, which would just be like his pain, and he
Right.
absorbs that out of him and heals him. And so maybe what they're doing is kind of an extension of that, taking out the Bob orb, kind of healing him and putting it back in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Man, no, that was crazy, because so I'm trying to think chronologically, like yeah, the woodsmen are doing their work, and as they're doing that, Coop arrives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the orb kind of floats out of Scale Coop's stomach.
Yeah.
And I think at this time already, Andy had taken everybody once him and Chad, like once he arrests Chad, he gets everybody out of the jail, out of their
he
cells.
says,
And
I gotta get you all upstairs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think at this time they're all together in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all in Truman's office, and oh man, this was so crazy. Basically, the Bob orb starts like flying and going crazy, and like I'm trying to think exactly what they say, but Coop looks at Freddy and then says, "Are you Freddy?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's already aware of, I guess, the fireman's plan.
Yeah.
Or his destiny. What does Freddy say about his destiny right after that?
He pretty much just says, "My name is Freddy, and this is me destiny."
Yeah.
and proceeds. I want to like take the scene and just put the Rocky theme over it.
Yeah.
Because I love this. He just starts punching the shit out of the Bob orb.
Uh-huh.
Which it's so funny to me, but it's also just great. Like I love how weird it is. It's just a bizarre thing that a dude wearing a garden glove is punching a floating orb.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And I think to like as a testament to just how great the series is, it was like actually scary to me. Like,
yeah, no, it is kind of horrifying, because it's the sounds that the orb is making alone are pretty spooky, but when it's like attacking him, kind of how we saw that couple from the first episode get attacked.
Yeah,
exactly. By what we can assume now is Judy. So that was kind of a fun scene to watch.
Yeah, no, straight up. And I think again, like, just as far as like what the show's done and how innovative and I guess pioneering, if you want to put it that way, has been like, I feel like it, as much as people have been talking about that, I feel like it doesn't get enough credit for the sound design, because a lot of the horror in a lot of these scenes comes just from the sound design and how unsettling it is, even in like super intense moments, or when it might seem kind of dull and maybe a little bit more ominous.
Right. And David Lynch does all his own sound design.
Yeah, like
So
that in
all
itself
him.
is super. That's amazing to me. So yeah, I like, for whatever reason, as it was scary, I was also viewing like the fight with the Bob Orb as like a video game, like boss level. Like I was like, all right, he's got to get 3 hits in, and he kind of does. Like he hits him like, I think, about 3 times, and then the Bob Orb like goes. I don't. How would you describe it? Like goes into the floor.
He like punches it into the ground, and it's almost kind of like when Bob steals Wyndham Earl's soul, and the flame shoots out of Wyndham Earl's head.
Definitely.
It like kind of just shoots out of the ground.
Opens up in the ground, and then fires like coming out, and then basically that it's like the Bob Orb gets like supercharged with like hellfire, and just starts like really going crazy on Freddy, and like fucking his face is getting all cut up and bloody and stuff. And I was like, oh man, Freddy's about to die. Did you have that feeling, or were you like, he's gonna pull through?
I was a little worried, but I knew my Garden Glove One Punch Man. He had what it takes. He could go the distance. I always root for the underdog, and Freddy seems like an underdog to me. Although Freddy, he's always kind of had it all figured out. I feel like.
You think so?
I mean, yeah, like hearing his story from where he grew up, I feel like maybe he always knew he had it in him.
Yeah, it's his destiny. So yeah, he basically just fucking gives the Bob Orb one more good punch, and then it just kind of, how would you describe did it explode?
Yeah, he just fucking blows that shit up, dude. Everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the pieces from the Bob Orb just kind of like, well, we should say also, they reused the classic Bob line of like, put you in my death bag.
Catch you in my death bag. I love that.
Catch you.
Yeah. I did love that.
That was used so well, because it was like right when he's like just going crazy on him, and I was like, oh man, Bob's about to take this dude, but he so yeah, basically the Bob Orb explodes, and like the pieces like just float up and kind of evaporate. Do you think that Bob is gone? Do you think that Freddy killed Bob, or just prevented Bob from moving further?
I would say that kind of gets rid of Bob. That kind of goes in with
I think so too.
Kind of goes in with kind of what happens a little bit further into the episode here. But, so Coops looks at Freddy. You did it, Freddy!
Yeah.
Which was good. I don't know. I loved it. I love that Freddy's like, did I do it? Did I punch him real hard? Yeah, you did it. So yeah, we see Coop put the ring on Scale, and the ring kind of heads back into the Black Lodge. Did we see Scale go back in? Like, did we see him enter the lodge, or did we just see the ring?
Yeah, well, we do see him later.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah, we won't get into that now, but yeah, like he puts it on, and yeah, we don't see his body appear. I think we just see the ring, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was crazy. I was like, I really was expecting Scale Coop to get up, so that was nice to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically they they do that. He puts the ring on him, and Coop asks Truman for the room key.
Yeah.
But I think before he does, Gordon shows up, right? Gordon and Albert and Tammy.
They show up just as he says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, this is going to be kind of hard to explain from here on out, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it gets real weird. um, I think from this scene forward,
Mm-hmm.
we have a really light overlay of Cooper's face
Right.
for
And we
the
should
rest of
say,
the scene.
and the reason why it's initiated is he notices that Naito is there.
Hmm.
And once he sees her, that's when, this overlay of just like a shocked look on his face just appears throughout the next couple of minutes. And silently until towards the end of the sequence. But that really threw me off. I'd never seen something like that. Gordon shows up, and obviously the Mitchum brothers are there. what do they say? Like, one for the grandkids?
Yeah.
Once they see all that happen with the Bob Orb and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bobby shows up and he's like, "What's going on here?" And basically Coop's like, "Your dad, like Major Briggs, the information that he gathered led to all of this, right?"
Right. Yep. Yeah.
And then Candy's Candy's like, "Good thing we brought all these sandwiches." And it's this very like I was expecting them to all like put their hands in and like, give us like a nice little we did it, and then freeze frame of them all happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But nope, we haven't got lynched yet. So.
Oh yeah, we about to get lynched real hard.
It was a nice getting frosted is always very nice. It's this very nice moment where it's like all of these new faces, old faces are together again, and they've like defeated this evil, and it's just a really nice moment. It feels like old Twin Peaks, it feels like new Twin Peaks, but it's just like just a very happy moment. But it kind of changes because Coop is like, everything's about to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, how does he describe it? He's like, he says a little bit more here.
Yeah, one of the quotes I wrote down was, "Past dictates the future."
Right. Because, basically he says that things are going to change, and then he and Naito touch hands. And her face kind of goes through a transformation. At first, it looks like it becomes the Arm's new face. Is that right? Did you see that too?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like it's very quick, but that's at least how I saw it. Is like it becomes the Arm's new face, and then it seems like it's a portal to the Black Lodge. And then this next part, I really don't know how to describe. It was like a kind of disfigured rock type shape that like appears in the Black Lodge, and it's kind of floating there. But basically, it ends up being Diane. Diane's face appears. And she appears like her face is there, and then like she just appears in place of Naito. So when the last episode,
it's kind of like
when Tulpa. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, it's kind of like that very special moment in the hit DreamWorks film Shrek when we see Fiona reveal her true self at the wedding.
I'm not giving you any more like speaking passes now.
Thanks.
No, that's fine. That's a very good and relevant comparison, Vin.
It really helps move the conversation forward.
Yeah. So yeah. Now I'm just gonna be making Twin Peaks and like Shrek parallels in my mind.
I'm gonna take that scene. I'm gonna add the score from the wedding in the first Shrek film.
Spooky. So yeah,
side note, my friends got married this past weekend, and is there any objections kind of thing, and in my brain I was like, I object, like thinking about the scene in Shrek, and like it kind of chuckled, and then that's pretty much the end of the ceremony. And as they walked off, they walked out to "Accidentally in Love" from
No
Shrek
way.
2, and I was cracking my ass up. It was a beautiful wedding. It was just, that was so funny to me. Anyway, back to Twin Peaks.
Get back to Twin Peaks. Oh man, I hope anyone that's listening to this humors us a little bit. So, so yeah, Diane appears, and to me, I thought I saw, and it's kind of hard to tell because it seems like it was kind of going back and forth as far as like its transparency level. But I think the shock Coop face kind of disappears for a second when he sees Diane, and so they kiss. And then after they kiss, it kind of becomes more prominent again. And, yeah, because he asks her... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what do you think about them kissing?
I thought it was genuine. I thought, because if I'm not mistaken, when Diane says, like, it happened once before, I'm assuming that that's about a time before Evil Coop was out and about, right?
Right.
Do you think that was with Dale?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. They had a genuine kiss before, but I'm not sure. Like, we don't really know about these characters' history, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, it's all speculation. So I think it was genuine. I think they hadn't seen each other in 25 years, and they had a genuine connection that was all kind of ruined. And so yeah, I thought it was just kind of a nice touching moment. Did you see it any differently? Did you?
I was kind of bothered by it just because we haven't seen Coop interact with the real Diane ever before. So
yeah,
and we spent all this time in the series meeting Diane's tulpa rather than real Diane. So yeah. I don't know. My question is, how's Annie?
Yeah, I was expecting Annie to show up. Is that weird? Were you expecting that at all, or no?
I thought about it, but
yeah.
At the same time, how much Lynch doesn't like the second season, so
yeah.
A lot of that doesn't get to really have its fruition.
Right. No, it makes sense. I mean, there's so many different ways that they could have approached the series and like tying up loose ends and stuff. So it's like there's only so much you can do,
Mm-hmm. Right.
At least that's how I look at it. But no, yeah, I don't know. It was just I think one part about it is we haven't seen, like, we got Coop back in episode 16. But you haven't seen him in so long, and like it's kind of weird to see his interactions and how he is with everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I don't know, it was okay to me, but he asks her afterwards if she remembers everything, and she says yes, and then the Coop overlay, so. I know that would have made you laugh because it made me laugh too.
It wasn't really so much of a laugh. It was internally, yeah, it's kind of a laugh just because I do stuff like this when I edit movies or anything that I'm doing, like any video projects that I'm working on. I always do weird shit like this that I'm just accidentally Lynchian, I suppose.
Right.
I did this before I was into David Lynch stuff, and I still do it now, but it was just kind of I think its placement is what makes it somewhat funny.
Yeah, because it's like this like nice endearing moment, and then in a pitched down voice the Coop overlay says,
we live inside a dream.
Yeah.
It's almost Rick and Morty-esque.
Yeah.
Show me what you got.
Yeah, and I feel like this is gonna, like, probably at this moment is kind of where people, the people that are jumping off the bandwagon or not the bandwagon, or, just rooting for the return. I feel like this is where a lot of people probably are like, what's going on?
Right.
Yeah, so he says that in his pitch down voice, and then Coop says, normal Coop that's there in the scene, as he's kind of looking at everyone, he says, "I hope I see all of you again, every single one of you." And then I don't know if this is necessarily just a transition. I think it is, but it was done very dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of fades to blackness. It's like darkness. And then you see Coop and Diane walking, and Gordon's by their side as well. And then you can kind of, it's not so dark anymore. You kind of see that they're in the boiler room of the Great Northern,
Great
right?
Northern, yeah.
And so it turns out that Coop's room key is for down there in the boiler room, how we had talked about before, of what James discovers, the two doors that are down there. And so, man, I don't know. Is that kind of what you were expecting? Were you expecting Coop to end up down there?
No. I that didn't even cross my mind. So
Yeah. So
it was kind of interesting that that's what the key led to.
yeah, because I don't know why I didn't put it together, but I just guess maybe there was something in his room, because I mean, his room, there was a lot of significant things that happened. He was, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the original series, but he
I love that we're giving a spoiler warning on the finale of the episode.
Yeah.
Or of the series.
I can't imagine watching this show without watching the original, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it would be so much easier to just write it off as this is stupid and I don't care about these characters and this is dumb, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, in his room, he's shot by Josie, which we eventually find out. And he's visited by the giant and the old man, who, the giant, him and the old man, the giant has his own way of helping through riddles,
Yeah, and selling us pumpkin spice lattes.
Uh-huh. and the the old man just, he's not on board. He's very, when he's the old man, I don't know what it is. He's just very goofy, and he's like, he's very nice. He's a sweetie, but it's
I've heard about you.
Yeah. It's like, Coop's just laying there dying, and he's like, he hangs up the phone, just keeps giving him the thumbs up. Coop's dying, giving him the thumbs up. That's still one of my favorite scenes, because it's so frustrating, but you're just like, okay, this is fine. Anyway. Coop tells both of them, once he's at the door, he tells both Diane and Gordon not to follow him in, and he says, "See you at the curtain call," which I thought was a very nice line. And then, so we see Coop in darkness. Mike appears and tells Coop, it was just like I was talking to you. Mike tells him the Fire Walk with Me poem. And that was like, I'm going to be honest, that scared me. I don't know what it was about Mike appearing, but like...
Well, because it's essentially just we see his head.
Yeah.
And it's surrounded by total blackness, which was super creepy. And like when I first glanced over, because, I was taking notes, and like I looked up and I was like, is that fucking Wyndham Earl? And then I paid better attention. I was like, oh, that's clearly not Wyndham Earl.
Yeah.
That's Mike. But I kind of like, for a second, I was like, no fucking way.
Right. And it kind of, for a second, just for a split second, I was like, oh no, is Mike going to turn on Coop? Like, is this
I thought
like
that too.
Right? Because like, and we had talked about that before, like, we were like, well, Mike's not completely good. He has his past, and like, he might be working on his like own intentions. We don't really know.
Right.
It's fair to be,
Right. Because in Fire Walk with Me, there's the scene where Mike yells at Leland, who he obviously must recognize as Bob, and yells like, "You ate all my cream corn." And then in the series, he's like, "I'll know who Bob is."
Right.
He's not helpful. When if he clearly knows that Bob is Leland, why would he withhold that information if he's truly good?
Right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was kind of spooky for a second, and then he just kind of tells him, "It's a nice way of saying, come with me,
Yeah.
friend." Um, and so yeah, there's electricity, and then it cuts, and they're kind of walking together in that same when Scale Coop went into the convenience store, which was the portal to talk with Philip Jeffries. There's just like that overlay of like the woods and the empty house, and then they arrive at the staircase, and they walk up the stairs, and then once they go through the top of the stairs, like the doorway, there's electricity, like a zap, and then we see the man with what is his name? The Jumping Man, is that right?
Yeah.
The Black
The
Lodge
dude
spirit.
with the mask with the long nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like by the stairs, right?
Yeah.
Or like he like goes down the stairs or something. He's just kind of quickly there. And so yeah, they're walking over to Philip Jeffries' room. Do you want to kind of explain this, because I know quite a bit is said here?
Yeah. Gosh, I didn't take down a lot of quotes that Philip Jeffries was essentially saying, but
Well, like he gives him a quote, or he gives him a date. He says, like when he arrives, he says something like
February 1989.
Yeah, February 23rd, 1989. He's like, you need, because he's like Philip Jeffries.
He says Philip, and then he says you need to be more specific. And I figure he says that because Mike is technically also Philip Gerard's. That was how I took that.
Got it. Yeah, I was just like, come on, like you haven't seen each other in a long time. You can at least be a little bit more friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Philip, as we were talking about before, Philip Jeffries tells Coop to say hi to Gordon for him, which is very nice. And then he says, this is where you'll find Judy.
Judy, right. And so this is kind of interesting because he shows... So essentially, a 7 comes out of the tea kettle, forms into the Owl Cave kind of logo, and then it turns into an 8, and then we also see it become a 0.
Right.
Which is the address to the Palmer house.
Yeah. And so that says a lot right there. And... I'll get into that here in a second. Because, like the things he's like, there may be someone, ... Did you ask me this? So what do you think those lines meant? There may be someone, did you ask me this?
Maybe it's because he couldn't... Maybe he doesn't realize that the two Coopers are different. And he's saying, did you already ask me this? Because he says again, like, it was good to see you again, Cooper.
That's right, yeah, because... No, that's totally right, because he wasn't sure about Scale Coop being a different person, right?
Yeah. As far as we know.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, was it in this scene where... I think it was where he's, like, looking for it, and he's like, hold on, it's slippery in here.
Yeah.
That was really funny to me, because I was like, I mean, when you see the giant tea kettle and you're told it's Philip Jeffries, I just assumed his like spirit was kind of like floating in there, but that made me think, like, what if he's just like stuck in a tea kettle?
David Bowie's just in there.
So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I like that.
And then Mike said, and then the last thing Philip Jeffries says is, you can go in now. And Mike tells him, Cooper, remember electricity. Right?
Yeah.
And then it cuts to black and white, and you kind of see what I thought was a fan blade, but I think it's the motorcycle, like the wheel. And now we are back to a scene from Fire Walk with Me of James picking up Laura, and Leland gets like mad it's at night, and this is the night that Laura is murdered, right?
Yep.
Kind of the start of that night.
Yeah.
And so basically, what happened is Coop is now back in this time period. So he traveled back in time to the night that Laura was murdered.
Right.
And he's kind of watching them in the woods, and he's kind of, just the scene is unfolding how it did between Laura and James. Nothing really changed there.
Yeah.
She drops the classic, Bobby killed a guy.
I would have loved for Cooper to be like, he did? And
I know.
Just, kind of vaporize out and arrest Bobby in the modern day. You can't be a fucking sheriff.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wanted him to write that down in his notepad or
Yeah.
Okay, Diane.
Yeah. Diane, I've traveled back in time.
Oh man.
Sidebar. I was kind of hoping that Cooper would get the fucking key to the Great Northern, and if Naito didn't end up being Diane, he gets the key to the Great Northern and he goes into his room there and he opens up a drawer and pulls out the fucking tape recorder and he goes, Diane.
Whoa.
Diane's just been the tape recorder the whole time. It's been great.
Like Josie was the doorknob.
Doorknob, yeah.
Oh no. So so yeah, basically that scene unfolds and Laura's take me home, and as they're driving off, Laura hops off of the motorcycle, and I mean, not to belittle her performance because she really went for it in this movie. The I forget the actress's name, but the woman that plays Laura,
Right, Cheryl Lee is her name.
Yeah. Where she's like, I love you, James. That, for whatever reason, I mean, she's very traumatized and she's gone through a lot, but there's something about how she I think it's also James's demeanor that he's just kind of the soft spoken, he doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's like, I love you, James. He's just okay. He doesn't really understand. But anyway, she hops off his bike and runs into the woods, and as she's running through the woods, modern Coop, who time jumped, stops her, and he's just kind of standing there, and
this was done very well too, by the way.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was, because this was all in black and white.
Yeah.
And or at least at this point, it's all in black and white, and I was like, man, when I was looking at the Laura, because this is now, they filmed this in modern day, their interaction, so I was like,
mm-hmm.
Man, they did a super good job with this. It was believable,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you see them, and what does she say? Oh yeah, she's like, I've seen you in a dream, right?
Yeah.
And so I always think about in these instances, I would think that Coop would be a little bit more talkative, be explain to her what's going on, mm-hmm. but he just kind of stands there and reaches his hand out, but maybe he didn't want to freak her out.
Right.
But is that how you took it, or I don't know?
Well, it's kind of odd because we have eccentric Coop back for a little bit, the Coop that we remember, and then kind of as everything wraps up in Sheriff Truman's office, he's almost like a mix of, he's like a hardened Dale Cooper from this point on.
Yeah, it's definitely a conscious decision, you know what I mean? It's not because Coop, even in intense situations, the Dale Cooper that we know is still kind of it's still, lighthearted, and he has that just that charm to him, I guess, is the
mm-hmm.
best way to describe it. So, and that's just, it's there, but it's kind of dulled down, and we can talk about that. We'll talk about that more in the next episode, but yeah, it is, that's kind of when I started noticing it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then they touch hands, and then we cut to the infamous scene of Laura's dead body washed up on the shore, and we see it disappear.
Right.
It kind of flickers out, and then Laura asks where they're going, and Coop says that they're going home, And then this was nice. We got to see Josie, Pete, and what's her name?
Catherine.
Catherine. Yeah, sorry. We see them from what was the pilot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because Pete goes out fishing, and then that's when it all is discovered. But yeah, we just see him fishing, and then that's kind of it. But it was nice to me that they included those characters because they're not really pivotal in the story or even brought up at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just nice to see them somehow featured.
The seeing Pete kind of just peacefully fishing the morning away was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and actually at the end of the episode with the credits, it says in memory of Jack Nance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really cool. So yeah, we see that, and then we're back at Sarah Palmer's house, or the Palmer residence, but it's in modern day, and we don't see her on screen for quite a while, but we just hear this like low, distorted moaning, like a very guttural, uneasy sounding moan.
Right.
And
if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those were taken from the first episode of Twin Peaks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, because they, even with, like, Bob, when Bob's the Bob Orb and he's attacking Freddy, you can hear his, like, backwards laugh just, like, incorporated. So, again, the sound design, amazing. So good how they incorporated everything. But, yeah, she finally appears in frame, and she takes the infamous, is it the prom picture of Sarah Palmer? Or
yeah,
Laura?
Homecoming. Yeah.
Homecoming, yeah, of Laura, and just starts like stabbing it basically, and
right.
Like, shatters the glass and is just like attacking it and like yelling, and
yeah.
so that was really spooky.
What's interesting about that though is that the picture is not being harmed at all. She's stabbing it continuously, but the picture is remaining intact.
That's a good observation. That's definitely. I feel like that's fair or that's true to what happens in the next episode, right?
Right.
In a sense.
So, and so it's almost like Judy is trying to kill her, but she can't.
Mm-hmm. Wow, man, you're getting some gears going in my mind right now. No, I would definitely agree with that. That's a good pickup on you. So, man, the way that this episode ends is like, you're like, man, it's a little different, it's weird, but it's like it's ended on a high note. It's like Laura never really died, like Coop corrected the past, and so as they're walking through the woods, all of a sudden you just hear this like kind of clicking, scratching noise, because you see Coop holding hands with Laura as they're like walking through the woods, and he's kind of leading her. But then once her hand is out of frame, you hear this clicking noise, and you hear her scream, and Coop realizes that she disappeared suddenly. And that's how the episode ends. So let me get your opinion on, before you watched episode 18, and I guess we can revisit it in the next episode, but how did you take that as far as like her just disappearing like that? Like what were your initial thoughts? Like what was happening? What happened to her?
Well, see, to me, I don't like the idea of stopping Laura Palmer's death, because that, Laura's sacrifice in a sense brings all these people together. And it not only rallies like a lot of the community together, but it brings Dale to Twin Peaks, and with the relationships that he creates with everyone in the town is something really special. And Laura not dying, that prevents all that from happening, and who knows what else would happen in the future where Laura is alive. You know what I mean?
Right, because I go back to like when this is a little diversion a little bit, but when Major Briggs is like talking with Bobby about like how I see great things in your future, You know what I mean? And it's like, he was true, and he was, as we saw in the series, is very prophetic. He knew what was going to happen. But like you said, like if Laura wasn't murdered, would Bobby have become Bobby? You know what I mean? Because we see, at the beginning of the series where he's like, he sees the picture of Laura and it just brings back all those emotions and he starts crying. Like, I feel like that probably fueled a little bit. Like, he still has a strong connection to her and he feels bad about her murder. So maybe that sense of like justice and upholding the law came from her dying a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right, definitely.
So no, I agree with you. Like, it does mess up a lot of the other stuff. When you saw that, were you thinking Coop made a mistake or Coop's not thinking clearly, or were you like, he knows something I don't, this needs to happen?
I was kind of thinking that was what was going to be explained in the next episode, was he knows something that I don't.
Right. Me too.
And what I thought might be going on was, maybe Coop was making a mistake in trying to prevent her death, and her disappearing was just like, you can't stop this. Like, it's an event that happens no matter what, is kind of how I took that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But I suppose that kind of leads us into the next episode where we can speculate more on what exactly is going on.
Also, but can I just say, if the happy ending for Laura right then and there is, we're gonna take you home. Okay, yeah, you take her home, but she still has Leland as her dad. Like, who's Bob?
Right. Well, what I kind of took that as is when Freddy destroyed Bob, he destroyed him in all timelines. And maybe he's taking her home to
a happy house. That's okay.
Where Leland is normal. And, the weirdest part about him is his love of show tunes.
Yeah.
Which, you got to deal with your dad being a little weird,
Right,
but,
and wanting to dance with everyone.
Yeah, but maybe he doesn't realize, I don't know, because, Philip Jeffries pointed it out, the 780, that's the Palmer House residence, that's where Judy is, so maybe he didn't mean the literal home, but, maybe a figurative home.
Yeah, that could be. Also, we're about to do the second episode, but no, I agree with you, because kind of the events that unfold in the first part of this next episode kind of go along with that theory of trying to erase Bob altogether. Or at least that's how I took it. Mm-hmm. But we can get into that here in a little bit. But oh man, it was stressful. But after that episode, I was just like, this is like the most incredible thing I've ever seen. It was like, just thinking about, like, it's so much happened in that episode,
Yeah.
And it was just, insane.
Right. Well, on that note, I guess we will see you in the next part here. If you found something that we didn't, let us know in the comments down below. Love to hear feedback and what you guys think is going on in the town of Twin Peaks.
Indeed. I'm going to get another cup of coffee, and then we're going to jump right back into it. So
definitely. Yeah. As always, I'm going to love you, I'm going to miss you, and I'll see you next time, all right?